Dr. Shelton Goode, an Air Force veteran. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Icarus Consulting, a veteran-owned consulting firm that specializes in helping organizations create inclusive cultures that leverage diversity and inclusion for a competitive advantage. He is an executive with over 20 years of experience in business and higher education. Prior to forming his own consulting firm, Dr. Goode was an HR executive at the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Agency, i.e. MARTA, Oshkosh Corporation, Pennsylvania Power and Light, Georgia Power, Southern Company, and Alabama Power. Based on the results achieved in these positions, he earned the reputation as a strategic yet results-oriented leader. And let me tell you, we all are in for a treat today as he comes to speak with us about diversity and inclusion. So let's give a warm and enthusiastic St. Leo welcome to Dr. Shelton Goode.
Thank you. Donald, are we okay? Volume wise? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Is this mic on?
Yes.
Everyone that's been up here or has presented in any forum knows the two toughest spots to speak are when? Right before lunch and right after lunch. I literally took a red eye to get back here from LA so I can be with you today. So give the brother some love. So let's get started. I know we've got a hard stop. And thank you again for that warm introduction. I always I'll start my presentations by making sure that I let people know that whatever else you got out of that bio, please know that the thing I'm the most proud of is the fact that I'm the father of two sons who are active duty military officers. One's in the United States Navy and one is in the Air Force. So let's give them. Let's talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is diversity. But what I want to do today is have a little bit different spin and talk about diversity in tech, inclusion by disruption. Now, everyone in here has heard the numbers. You cannot turn on the radio, pick up the newspaper, watch the television. You know that tech is under tremendous pressure to increase diversity in their company. So without calling out the companies, you know that they've been on the front page news on several occasions because of their lack of diversity. But today we're going to take a little bit different spin about this because tech, which is, let's just go and jump right into this. Tech, which has obviously been a major disruptor in a number of industries, is going through its own disruption. And so the bottom line to this whole presentation is the fact that the biggest myth about tech and diversity is that a lot of people believe that most of the jobs in tech are in the big tech companies, and they're not. And that's what we're going to be talking about. But first, before we even talk about diversity and inclusion, let's make sure we're all on the same page. So when we're talking about inclusion, we're talking about an organization, regardless of the type of organization, taking intentional actions to make sure that everybody in the organization comes to work every day, goes home at the end of that day, feeling valued, respected, and connected to something bigger than themselves. But it's not just the employees. We're talking about whether or not they're taking intentional actions to make sure that they are broadening the vendors that they buy supplies from, that they are reaching out and partnering with community organizations, professional associations in order to expand the pool from which they recruit from. And then what are they doing in terms of the environment to make sure that once they recruit from a workforce that is becoming increasingly more diverse, what are they doing to make sure that they've got an environment where those people feel supported and in fact, those people will be productive and will stay. So when we're talking about inclusion, that's what we are talking about. And so there are a lot of benefits that come from diversity and inclusion. The evidence is overwhelming. No matter what metric you use, whether you're talking about customer service, whether you're talking about productivity, whether you're talking about earnings per share, whether you're talking about profitability, no matter what metric you use, the evidence is overwhelming that an organization that takes intentional actions to make sure that it taps into a diverse workforce and then create an inclusive work environment for that workforce is going to, all things being equal, and over the long run, is going to outperform organizations that don't do that. So people say, well, what's the business case? What's the business case? The business case has been presented and has been proven that that ship has already sailed, but you can't remind people too much that there are overwhelming benefits to taking intentional actions to be more diverse and more inclusive. So tech, it's an industry that prides itself. It prides itself on being disruptive and shaping the future. Companies in the technology industry are facing a growing shortage of talent, and at the same time, they're having a hard time attracting and retaining and developing highly skilled engineers. Now, you say, tech? Yes. I'm talking about the big tech companies. I'm talking about the big tech companies. So at the same time, they're under pressure for not being diverse, particularly in leadership. They are finding themselves fighting for talent. They are cannibalizing each other like you would not believe. Their hiring costs, their retention costs, their development costs are 4 times what they were just in 1990. And at that rate, it's unsustainable. So it's funny to me that what you see on the front of all of the trade magazines are the big tech companies are not diverse. They're not diverse in leadership. But the problem, and what they don't tell you, is that, well, why is that? First of all, they're facing a tremendous shortage of talent, and they are facing tremendous competition, but not just from each other, from what you would consider to be non-tech type companies. So let's talk about some of the implications. Okay, look at some of these numbers. People of color who enter the tech industry leave the field 3.5 times the rate of their white peers. Women working in tech jobs are 45% more likely than their male peers to leave the industry within the first year. Now, you say, what's the benchmark there? If you look at all types of industries, there's only the second industry that has that sort of turnover is manufacturing. Diversity brings with it, as we all know, unique experiences and solutions to everyday challenges that technology businesses face. They cannot afford nor sustain this sort of turnover. You're just not going to get the sort of acts that we've gotten spoiled by and used to if they cannot recruit, develop, and retain highly skilled, diverse engineers, which are increasingly becoming women and people of color. I was the chief diversity officer for several utilities and for a transportation agency who, by and large, if I had to say, the #1 skill that we needed was engineers. And I'm going to tell you that the fact that I worked for these companies and they were, by and large, less than 10%, had 10% people of color, had, in most cases, less than 20% women, I found it increasingly difficult to go to schools and recruit female engineers and people of color who were engineers to come to the company, because once they came, whether it was on internships or visits, and they looked around, they didn't see people like them, they didn't see people like themselves in leadership, they said, nope, I can go to another company. Let me give you a specific example. I lost and the engineer that we highly recruited to Oshkosh Defense Corporation, gave her what we would consider to be above market pay. We usually started people around 90% of the market. We gave her 110%. Gave her an incredible signing bonus. She gave us all that back and went to work for AIG as an engineer. And so when you think engineers and you think tech, you think, oh yeah, there's plenty of jobs. If you think about the fact that, again, there's incredible competition for engineers across a lot of different fields, and tech has to compete for them just like anybody else. So that's not sustainable. We're in the age of disruption, folks. You can't look around and look in any industry that's not being disrupted by something. Disruption sounds like a bad word. But disruptive innovations provide simpler, and I love this, more elegant solutions to existing problems. I have my photographer back there, but I bet you if he probably could do more with this phone right here than I ever could in terms of taking pictures and shooting videos and things like that. They are enabled by new technology and often at a lower cost. Technology disruptors. We're talking about things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, artificial technology, the Internet of Things. All of these platforms, when they are used in a secure fashion, protecting our privacy, are going to improve and are improving the quality of life for everyone, everywhere. No industry is exempt, whether it's schools, public waste, public health, public safety, housing, society, security, all being disrupted. Some that are not quite there yet, but are ripe for disruption. And there is someone right now working on an app that is going to, or working on a solution that is going to disrupt this industry. Local government, right now, Atlanta has an RFP out for companies to help create a smarter city. Energy, a field I came from, transportation. I don't know if you noticed or not, but right in Doorville, when they finish working on that small little city that they're creating inside of Doorville, they're going to have an autonomous vehicle that's going to transport the workers around the campus. I mean, it's just great. Retail, parks, public facilities, all very, very ripe for disruption. Now, diversity though, as a disruptor. Tech is probably the most vulnerable, and they are not ready for the disruption that they are currently going through as a result of diversity. What are you talking about, Dr. Goode? Well, let me just go through all these. Diversity is changing the tech landscape. Home is where the hatred is where the talent is. And Amazon employs 5,000 workers, little slip there. Amazon employs 5,000 workers in Atlanta. In the metro area's diverse pool is the main reason. Google plans to double its workforce in the DC metro area from 7,000 to 14,000, not because of government incentives and tax breaks, but because of access to diverse talent. The space industry in Houston, want a high-paying job, paying on average $150K? Look at Houston Metro. Again, jobs in the tech sector. These are all places outside of Silicon Valley. Not all tech jobs are in tech companies. In fact, over a quarter of the jobs are not in your big tech companies. They are in fact in companies outside of Silicon Valley, and that workforce, this is what I want you to take away, if nothing else from today's presentation. That workforce is 62% filled by women and people of color. So when you hear about the lack of diversity in tech, they're talking about the lack of diversity in your big tech companies. And I'm not going to call them out, but you know who they are. Companies with the most job openings in machine learning. Look at these companies. JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, KPMG. Not the sort of companies that that would first come to mind when you think about tech. But let me just throw out this question just for the sake of a little bit of interaction. Why would these companies need tech?
They do financing.
And?
And
So say it again?
protection.
Protection? Say that again. Protection? Okay. What else? What else?
Artificial intelligence.
What you say?
Artificial intelligence.
For artificial intelligence, for what though? For what? Yes.
Detect aberrations.
All these things are correct. I mean, you cannot believe how much these companies are investing in tech, especially when it comes to speed. Especially when it comes to speed. I don't know about you, but I don't know. I would not even think about doing day trading when considering the amount of money these companies are investing in speed. They are, between machine learning and artificial intelligence, they have deployed tech that can make that can analyze trends and make decisions around securities to trade within microseconds. So the tech, the first to feel this disruption, which is the use of talent, diverse talent, people of color, women, outside of Silicon Valley, they are going to be your big tech companies. Why? Because they rely on armies of analysts, engineers, and their business model is based on gathering consumer data that have put them at the center of global concerns about privacy, fake news, and security. And so they are under, you've got the war for talent, you've got the shortage of talent, and then they are under tremendous pressure from global competitors, and then, of course, international companies as well as government has a bullseye painted on big tech. How other cities have become tech towns? Well, tech jobs outside of Silicon Valley have increased because of entrepreneurs, technologists, corporations, and other cities and other industries are going through this massive digital transformation. So now you have a lot of jobs that's not outside of Silicon Valley. Businesses such as finance, advertising, and media have the most technology-related jobs. Why? Because they were threatened by digital transformation and they had to adapt to survive. As a result, there are twice as many jobs and tech-related jobs in the financial industry as there are in the big tech companies. Diversity disruptors, let's dig a little bit deeper. Urban appeal. Has anyone here been to Silicon Valley? I literally just came back from Facebook. But it's a great place. California, expensive to live, pretty suburban, and the millennials and the generation coming behind them are more attractive to the New York cities, the Washington D.C.s, the Atlanta, Georgias, than they are to the Silicon Valleys. So diverse talent is being lured away from Silicon Valley because of the urban amenities. Another disruptor, a lot of people just want to stay home. They don't want to go to California. So New Jersey, New York, they decided to create their own tech campus. At Cornell, they've got a tech community that currently has about 300 top-notch students that Facebook and other companies would love to have. And they plan to grow that to 2,000 by 2030. 52% of this population of that 300 are people of women and people of color. And these are some of these are first-round draft picks. These are some of the best people in the industry. Applied tech. Tech hubs outside of Silicon Valley are offering women and people of color the opportunity to use math, software, and other technology to solve real problems that people care about. You care about affordable housing. You care about the environment. about climate change, about security, you care about STEM and growing a pipeline, these companies are luring people away because they're giving them a chance to work on things that's going to make life better, not just the next big driverless car. Consumer shifts. Big tech companies are under fire because, like I said, their business model, gathering ads and gathering data, and the breaches that have come as a result of third world infiltrators and others have put a bullseye on big tech. And so a lot of people now want to go to smaller firms outside of Silicon Valley. Radical intelligence. Before, big tech would gather all this data. They would have these great models, these great algorithms, and they kept everything secret. A lot of millennials, a lot of the people in the generation coming behind them believe in intelligence and the democracy of intelligence, that everything good should be shared for the betterment of all. So they're leaving the big companies in droves. And again, I'm talking about women and people of color. The same people that big tech is trying to hold on to are leaving because their business model is not appealing to people of color and women, and you can't throw money at them in order to keep them. So there's a lot of opportunities. Tech needs to look at its history and know that it's had a rocky road from the beginning. It started out in the 50s as white male dominated. In 1990 to 2000, you had the dot-com explosion, again, dominated by white males. The ones that created companies, benefited from the IPOs, white males. And so it wasn't until really 2010 that they really started coming under attack for their lack of diversity. 5 years later, McKinsey did a major study and have not given them a good grade for progress. In fact, McKinsey predicts that it won't be till 2040 that the diversity in tech, and that's if they survive this disruption, will have diversity that looks anything like the labor pool that they hire from. I'm here to tell you, in addition to looking at disruptions in diversity, I follow these mega trends. You're going to see changes in public policy, such as gun control, climate change, and others, because the millennial generation, the generation coming behind them, are not going to accept the status quo. And so I believe that's where you're going to see the change. This is the landscape that big tech has got to wake up and understand. This is what they're facing, and if they don't make some changes, they're going to find themselves at a competitive disadvantage with increasing hiring and recruiting costs and training and development costs. Some final thoughts. In case you still don't know what I'm talking about in terms of disruption, here are some facts that you should have experienced by now in your everyday life. The largest transportation providers in the U.S. don't own a single car. The largest hotel hospitality company in the world does not own a single hotel. And Amazon just passed Walmart as the nation's biggest retailer, and they're much more valuable. And that's the fact that outside of their Whole Foods stores, they don't own a single retail outlet. This is disruption, folks. This is disruption. We all can name companies that were #1 in their field, and they do not even exist today. They do think Blockbuster. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I think I left a few minutes for questions, but I do not want to stand between you and food. I don't even know what's in the menu, but I know it's really, really silly to stand between people and food. But so let's do this. While you're thinking about a question, let me say a couple of things. I talked about technology. Let's use it. I started a conversation here today. Let's continue it on LinkedIn. And let me give you some incentives to do so. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll be more than happy to send you a PDF of this presentation. If you connect I brought Dr. Perkins, where you at? Here she is. I brought some books. You can determine how you want to give those away, okay? But for anyone that's not a winner, if the first 5 people that connect with me on LinkedIn and show up in my feed, I will send you a signed copy of whichever of my 4 books you'd like to have. So let's continue this conversation. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And sir, I think I got time for one question, so I'll take yours.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Goode. I'm thoroughly in agreement with you that, all hands, when they're on the deck, it solves better problems.
Yes, sir.
So just a comment, based on the same diversity you're talking about, by UN Charter, maybe next time, you incorporate it. There's no longer any a word, say third word, because there's no first or second or third. So rather, it's developing countries and developed countries. So just observation.
Yep, good observation. What's my time? I got one more. Hey, Doc.
Hey, Doctor, thank you. Have been any companies that have identified themselves and were to make the adjustment to turn around diversity and ensure success for other companies to follow as benchmarks?
You talking about the big ones, or you talking about just or the non-big ones? No, the big ones. Success is the #1 impediment to change. The change that we're talking about is change specifically in leadership at the top. Facebook, as well as I said I wasn't going to call out any companies. There are some companies that recently added to their board of directors. So Ken Chenault of American Express just joined one. Rosalind Brewer just joined one. They are slow. They are moving too slow. So no, I'm not going to give any companies in big tech credit for anything yet, because everything they have done, to include the recent hire of 5 African American females, are now heading big tech companies as chief diversity officers. Why don't they start by they hire these people, why don't they start by listening to them? Most of them are personal friends, and they all are frustrated because they've been hired. And so let me just give you one quick example. One good friend is the head of diversity for Twitter. She wanted to institute the Rooney Rule, which basically says every single person that's hired at the VP level and above, the slate of candidates should include 1 female, 1 person of color. Shot down. Shot down. So we're talking about common sense, zero budget impact, alternative ways to go about making change, and they won't do it because they're shielded because of incredible profits. Their shareholders are happy with stock give-backs, and frankly speaking, they're not being pressured by the board of directors. And I'll be even more candid, because then I'll stop. They have already paid off the people that shook them down for money. So they've been approached by a lot of, let's just say, some external groups that they basically gave them, somewhere between $100,000 and $1 million, and those groups went away happy. So no, the change is slow, and no, there's not one that I would say should be used as an example. But this disruption that's going to happen, they will react. They will have to react to that. Yes, I think my time's up. Dr. Perkins has given me this, so connect with me on LinkedIn. Y'all go eat your food, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.